Namijuji, Gyakujuji, Ichimonji, and Skikomi Jime. I'm going to use a lapel and a roller for demonstrative purposes, also because it's something that people typically have at home. If you don't, I would certainly recommend it. With all the falling we do, kicking, jumping, it's a nice tool for self-massage for major muscle groups like your quads and your back. It also replicates the neck very nicely. It's cylindrical and it's firm. If I'm not using this, I'll use a pillow, the firmest one that I can find. But this will be helpful for me showing you in the video. So, Namijuji Jime. My fingers are going to slide inside the lapel, the iri, and my thumbs on the outside, on both sides, reaching in nice and deep. The biggest mistake most people make on this is that they're using the back side of their wrist. I'm going to get that quarter turn so that I can actually use the smallest surface area possible, and I'm going to use the bone across the carotids. We often call these chokes, but it's a bit of a misnomer. They're actually strangles. Choking is cutting off the air supply by putting pressure on the trachea. That's not what we're doing here. We're actually cutting off the blood supply to the brain by putting pressure on the carotids. So the fingers are going in, thumbs are out. Turn those wrists over enough so that the bone is going across the carotid artery, and you're going to cut the blood supply off. You can do this from top. Typically, I find I often need to kind of fall over the top of them to put this on, to get those wrists over properly, and that's fine. It's a nice pen. Even if they roll you over, you'll be in a good position on the bottom. I actually find that this works best for me from the bottom. If someone's in my guard, this is going to be the strangle that I'm typically going to go to from the bottom. On Sensei's Shime flows, we actually practice it this way, then the top person passes and does the other three from the top. But when we're doing the Shime list, and we're just doing the same person's doing all four, we do them all from full mount, and it can work this way as well. Gyakujuji, so the fingers going in, my thumb goes under the lapel, my fingers are on the outside. This one's a little easier because I don't have to turn my wrist as much, but I still got to turn my wrist. I still see a lot of people using the flat of the forearm or the back of the wrist here against the carotids. I need to turn enough so that this bone is actually cutting in. Fingers go in, the thumbs go in, the fingers are out. Turn and cut. I will often see people kind of dropping their elbows, flailing them out. Sensei does talk about dropping the elbows, but not like that. I see people doing this, and this is usually where I hear people cough, because I'm actually taking the pressure off the carotid, and both my wrists, you can now see, are going right into the trachea. That's where people start coughing. I want to reach as deeply as I can, and I imagine that I'm using scissors or hedge clippers, and I'm cutting the head off. You see how my elbows come together? As the elbows come together, the hands come together too, and that's putting pressure on the carotid. So I'm getting as deep as I can, thumbs in, turn those wrists over, make a cutting motion. Now if you want to drop your elbows, that's fine, but keep the elbows together this way so that it's tight. Don't flail them out and take the pressure off the carotids. Chopping motion, and then you can curl in. Just as an aside, in judo, the nomenclature is the other way around. I don't know the history of it or the politics or why it's like that. Why Kano and Okazaki decided one way or the other, or if it happened along the way. But in judo, Namijuji is thumbs in, Gyakujuji is the other way. For us, the normal strangle is this way, Namijuji, and reverse is thumbs in, Gyakujuji. Strangles are the same. The nomenclature is just reversed. So if you're working with the judoka, just be careful. So there's no arguments about the names. It doesn't really matter as much as how they're used in application. The next one, Ichimonji Jime, one long and one short. Starts off very similar to our Gyakujuji. The hand on top is still in, the thumb's in. I'm using the blade and cutting into the carotid. On the other side, instead of using my arm, I'm going to use the lapel, the iri itself. I'm going to slide down, pulling the lapel across the carotid. The biggest mistake people make is when they pull down, they just pull across the collarbone and the chest. They're not actually putting much pressure on the throat itself. I need to lift up, make sure I'm pulling across the carotid because I'm cutting the blood flow off with the gi itself. Got it on one side here. Make sure it's pulled up and get that counter pressure for the strangle. You'll notice now my thumb is actually out on the bottom. That's just my personal preference. Usually we do this from Gyaku-Juji, thumbs in, and you just slide the hand down and pull. I don't feel like I'm very as strong that way. So as I'm sliding it down, also as I'm making sure it's coming across the throat, I usually turn my hand over. I just feel like I'm stronger this way. It's more of a Kata-Juji Jime from Judo, one up and one down. We do just both up or both down. There's a third version in Judo called Kata-Juji, one up and one down. It's usually the hand on top, just because of the nature of the way the wrists bend. It doesn't work quite as well the other way, coming across those bones. In any event, the top one is just like Gyaku-Juji. The other one, I'm using the lapel and I'm pulling, whether it's up or down, however you want to do it. Pull and strangle. Finally, Ichi-Manji. I'm just using a knuckle or knuckles into the carotid itself. I'm going to use counter pressure. I'm using the gi for counter pressure and going straight in. That's great for self-defense. In Judo, you're not allowed to put your hands on the face or the neck, so you actually have to go through the gi. That's fine. I'm still going to hold the gi the same way. Instead of going into the throat with my bare knuckles, I just go under the lapel and then go through the gi to create the same strangle and push. Typically, we work on this as someone is tucking their chin so they can't actually get underneath for another kind of strangle. You can do this even with the chin tucked, or you can use this to set up one of the other ones. We'll push in on one side to kind of push the head to the side, dig under, dig under. I can do that, or it might even open it up enough where I can slide my hand in, one or both of my hands in. Again, Nami-Juji, Gyaku-Juji, Ichi-Manji, Ski Komi Jime.